The alien princess sat inside her grand flagship, staring out at the endless darkness of space. The stars looked cold and distant, shining like sharp needles against the black void. She had traveled this sector many times before, but tonight felt different. The silence was heavier, the shadows deeper, and her heart was uneasy. Her royal fleet surrounded her ship, dozens of glowing vessels armed with the finest weapons of her empire. Advisors walked the halls in golden robes. Guards stood ready with polished armor. From the outside, everything appeared secure and strong. But inside the princess's chest there was a strange fear. Something unseen was watching, and she could almost feel its presence. "Your Highness, the path is clear," her fleet commander reported with confidence, but his words sounded thin, as if even he could sense the hidden danger. The princess nodded slowly, her long fingers tightening on the armrest of her throne. A strange vibration had touched the ship moments ago, like a whisper from the void itself. Rumors had been spreading among the crew for weeks. Whispers of old stories, of shadows moving beyond the scanners. The younger soldiers laughed and called it superstition, but the older officers looked pale whenever the name humans was spoken. The princess remembered those tales from her childhood. Ancient warnings about a species that once walked the stars. They were said to be fearless, powerful, and cruel when challenged. But most of her empire believed those humans were long extinct, destroyed in their wars, vanished without a trace. Still, the princess felt no comfort in that belief. She knew that legends were born from truth, and truth had a way of returning. Her empire had mocked the idea of humans for centuries, yet her heart told her this silence was not natural. Something was hidden in the black curtain ahead. The ship's sensors began to flicker with strange signals. Lines of unreadable energy appeared on the monitors. Engineers worked with panic, pressing buttons and shouting codes. "Impossible readings," one of them whispered. The commander's voice grew tense as he ordered, "Stabilize the systems, now!" The princess rose from her throne, her flowing gown shining faintly under the lights, her eyes fixed on the starless patch of space directly ahead. It looked ordinary at first, but the longer she stared, the more wrong it felt, as if the void itself was alive and waiting. Her closest handmaiden spoke softly, "My princess, perhaps we should turn back." But the princess shook her head, her pride refusing retreat. If there was danger, she needed to see it. She needed to face it, no matter what the cost. Then it came. Faint at first, like a low heartbeat echoing through the ship, a vibration that touched every wall, every floor, every soul on board. The soldiers stopped moving, frozen in place. The lights dimmed as the heartbeat grew louder. It was not the sound of an engine, but the pulse of something ancient, something that did not belong to her world. The commander shouted, "Shields up!" Alarms rang, red light washed across the control deck, but the princess stood calm, though her hands trembled. Her breath caught in her throat as her gaze sharpened into the darkness. And then she saw it, a shadow moving in the void, so massive it swallowed entire stars behind it. At first her mind refused to understand, but slowly the shape became clear. Lines of steel, colossal towers, wings like blades carved from forgotten wars. Her fleet scanners screamed warnings, yet provided no data. The ship was unregistered, impossible to identify. The crew panicked. It cannot be real. It cannot exist. But the princess whispered only one word: humans. Her heart raced as the legendary warship emerged fully, into view, larger than any vessel her empire had ever built. It carried no flag, no signal of peace, only silence. Yet its silence was more terrifying than 1,000 weapons. Every alien officer in the chamber turned pale. Their voices broke as they asked what no one wanted to answer. Why has it returned, and why now? The princess trembled as her eyes locked on the warship. Every story she had heard as a child was now standing in front of her, alive. The myth had risen from the shadows of history, and it was watching her. The alien fleet floated in silence, every weapon aimed yet useless before the giant shadow. No one dared breathe too loudly, afraid the warship might notice them. The princess's heart pounded in her chest, but her face remained cold and proud. She could not allow her people to see her fear, not yet. Her commander barked orders. "Scan again. All systems at full power." But the scanners only screamed with static. The engineers stared at their screens, hands trembling. No technology can read it. It is like it blocks our very eyes. one whispered. The handmaiden leaned close to the princess, her voice a frightened breath. My princess, this must be the legend, the ship of the lost humans. The princess did not answer, her gaze fixed on the monster of steel. It hung in the void like a god, unmoving, yet heavy with unseen power. She remembered the old stories, told in hushed voices in the palace corridors, stories of humans who fought wars against entire empires, stories of warships that destroyed fleets with one strike, stories of soldiers who never surrendered, who never feared death. They were said to vanish long ago, but the sight before her eyes burned every doubt. One of her generals sneered, trying to mask his fear with arrogance. It is a trick, a phantom to frighten us. They say humans were weak, broken, finished. But his voice cracked, betraying the truth inside him. The crew avoided his eyes, for they knew what he refused to admit. The ship was real, and it was watching. A sudden tremor shook the fleet. From the human warship, but from within their own vessels, engines struggled, lights flickered, and systems died one by one. It was as if the warship's presence alone crushed their machines. No weapon fired, yet their technology bowed down in fear. Your Highness, we must retreat, the commander begged, sweat dripping down his forehead. But retreat felt like shame, and the princess's pride held her still. If she turned back now, her empire would call her coward. Yet if she stayed, the warship might erase them in a single breath. The alien soldiers began whispering among themselves. Their words spread like fire, desperate and wild. They say humans were death worlders, stronger than all races. They say one human ship could destroy 100 of ours. They say humans swore to return when their world was threatened. Every whisper was a blade cutting deeper into the princess's heart. Her hand shook slightly, and she clenched her fist to stop it. She could not let her fear control her. But when her eyes met the massive shape once again, she felt the truth. The humans had not died. They had not vanished. They had been waiting in the void, patient as predators. Suddenly a sound filled the chamber. Not a weapon, not an explosion, but a voice. It was deep, old, and carried across every ship at once. Alien systems failed, yet the voice still broke through. Do you remember us? It asked. The words were slow, calm, but heavy like thunder. The crew gasped, their bodies frozen. No one understood the language, yet every heart felt its meaning. It was not a question, but a warning. The princess gripped her throne tighter, her breath quickening. This was no ghost story, no child's tale. This was the beginning of something far greater. The alien general who had mocked the legends finally broke. His knees hit the ground, his voice shaking. It cannot be. This should not exist. The princess stared down at him with disgust, but her own legs trembled beneath her gown. The truth was unshakable. The humans had returned, and they had chosen this moment. The warship shifted in the void, its lights glowing faintly. The stars seemed to bend around it, space itself twisting at its command. No weapon fired, no army moved. And yet every alien on board knew they were standing at the edge of history, and the humans were about to write the next chapter. It was not just a ship. It was history alive, 1,000 battles, 1,000 victories carried in silence. The voice spoke again, final and absolute. This is your only warning. And then silence returned, a silence louder than any scream. Every alien heart pounded in terror. The princess gripped her throne, her lips trembling as she whispered, "They are back." The chamber of the flagship shook with the sound of silence. No weapon fired, no engine roared, yet the air itself felt heavy. The alien princess sat still, her eyes locked on the monstrous shape outside. Her body trembled, but she forced her face into calmness. If her people saw her break, the fleet would shatter with her. Her commanders shouted in panic, their voices rising like thunder. "Raise the shields again," one cried. "They are already gone," another shouted back. "Then prepare the weapons," another voice screamed. But no weapon answered, no shield returned. Their finest technology bent under an invisible hand. The warship hovered closer, its shadow stretching across the stars. It carried no banners, no signal of peace. It carried only silence. But that silence was sharper than any blade. Every officer knew it. Every soldier felt it. They were prey before a hunter, waiting for the strike. The princess rose from her throne, Her gown flowing like liquid silver, she walked toward the great viewing window, her breath uneven, and when she saw the warship's lights glowing faintly like the eyes of a predator, her own eyes widened. For the first time she could not hide her fear. Her handmaiden gasped, "Your Highness, your face." The princess touched her cheek and felt it wet with cold sweat. It was true, the fear had broken through. Even the royal mask could not cover it anymore. Her soldiers saw it. Her commanders saw it. The princess was trembling before the legend. Some tried to turn their eyes away, pretending not to notice, but the damage was done. If the princess was afraid, then no one could be brave. Panic spread like fire through the ranks. Some officers shouted for retreat, others whispered about surrender. One even whispered the unthinkable. If they are gods, should we kneel? The princess's heart burned with shame. Her empire was proud, her people called themselves rulers of the stars, and yet one human warship had reduced them to frightened children. She clenched her fists, her nails biting into her skin. She wanted to scream, to deny the fear, but when her eyes returned to the void, the scream died in her throat. The warship shifted again, slow and deliberate, and with that small movement, every alien ship shook violently. Engines failed, weapons froze, power vanished. It was as if the warship itself was rewriting the rules of space. The void obeyed it, not them. A voice came again, deeper than before. "This is not your territory," it said. "This is not your right." The words carried across every ship, no translation needed, for every mind understood. The humans were not speaking to machines, they were speaking to the soul. A general collapsed to his knees, his pride broken. "They will destroy us all," he cried. Another officer shouted in anger, his voice cracking. "Then let them. Better to die fighting." But no one moved, no one touched the weapons, because deep inside they knew to fight was to die without a single human shot fired. The princess gripped the window's frame, her eyes locked on the towering ship. She remembered the old line from the legends, "They never speak twice." Her lips quivered as she whispered, "If that is true, then we have already lost." The chamber fell into silence. The warship floated like a mountain carved from night. No attack came, no fire burned, but its presence alone had brought an empire to its knees. The princess could not deny it anymore. The fear was not in her people alone. The fear was in her own eyes. The alien fleet drifted helpless in the void, engines dead, weapons useless, hope vanishing. The princess stood before the great window, her breath sharp and shallow. Her people looked to her for answers, but she had none. The warship did not fire, it did not move with speed, yet its silence pressed heavier than 1,000 cannons. It was not a shadow anymore, it was the center of everything. The void bent around it, as if the universe itself feared to disobey. Suddenly, every screen in the flagship flickered to life, symbols appeared, unknown yet strangely familiar. Then the sound returned, the human voice, deep and unbroken. "You do not belong here," it said. The words struck every heart like stone. "We left warnings, you ignored them." The crew gasped, exchanging terrified glances. Had the humans been watching all this time? The voice continued, calm but merciless. "You cross our borders. You steal our resources. You mock our silence." It paused, and in that pause the princess felt her blood turn cold. But silence does not mean absence. The phrase echoed through the chamber like thunder rolling across a dead world. One of her generals screamed, "They were waiting for us to break the rules." Another collapsed against the wall, whispering, "We are already judged." The panic grew louder, but the princess raised her hand. "Quiet," she demanded, her voice shaking but strong enough to silence them. Her people's eyes turned to her, desperate for strength, yet inside she was breaking apart. The voice returned, this time sharper. "You think we vanished, but humanity waits. You think we are myth, but we are the storm at the edge of your empire." The screens flashed with images, battlefields long forgotten, worlds burned by fire, ships torn apart, and always in the center of the destruction, human soldiers stood unbroken. The princess's chest tightened as she watched. It was not only power, it was will. No other species in the galaxy had this kind of will, a will to fight until nothing was left, a will to rise again, even from ashes. Her people whispered in terror, "If they strike, we are finished." They do not need an army. One ship is enough. They are not like us. They are something else. Each word cut the pride of the Empire deeper. Each whisper made the silence of the warship even heavier. The princess pressed her hand against the glass. She wanted to deny it. She wanted to scream it was lies. But she knew the truth. The warship was not a relic. It was a messenger. And the message was clear. Humans had returned. Then the voice spoke again, final and absolute. "This is your last chance," it said. "Leave now or be erased." The words hung in the air, cold and merciless. No threat, no anger, only certainty, as if the outcome was already written. The chamber fell into silence once more. Every alien eye turned to the princess. Would she fight? Would she surrender? Would she flee? Her body trembled, her pride battled her fear, and yet deep inside she already knew this was not a choice, this was survival. The princess closed her eyes, her lips whispering to herself. The humans have spoken. The alien fleet floated in silence, trapped in the shadow of the legendary warship. The princess's heart beat hard in her chest, each thump echoing like thunder in her ears. Her commanders stood frozen, torn between pride and terror. The humans had given a final warning, but pride still poisoned the room. One general slammed his fist on the table, his voice sharp with anger. "We are not slaves. We will not bow," he shouted. Another officer shook his head, his face pale. "To fight them is suicide. You saw the message. You heard their voice." The chamber erupted in argument, voices colliding in panic and rage. The princess raised her hand, but before she could speak, it began. The human warship moved, slow and deliberate. Its lights flared, a deep hum rolling across the void like the breath of a giant. Every alien system screamed in alarm. Engines flickered, shields died, weapons melted from within. Ships across the fleet shuddered, their hulls groaning under invisible weight. "Defensive grid is offline," a soldier cried. "Our weapons are locked," another shouted. "No control, we are losing everything," the commander roared. And then, in an instant, half the fleet went dark. Mighty cruisers that once carried terror now drifted powerless. Not a single shot had been fired. The humans had crushed them with silence. Gasps filled the chamber. Soldiers fell to their knees. The princess felt her legs weaken, her hand gripping the cold frame of the window. The warship's lights pulsed like a beating heart, each pulse killing more of their machines, each beat proving one truth. This was not war. This was dominance. A voice came again, calm and merciless. "You are not our equals," it said. "You do not decide in this place." The words pierced the chamber, heavier than steel. The aliens had faced many enemies in the stars, but never an enemy who controlled the very laws of battle. Her generals trembled, their faces drained of color. One whispered in despair, "They are not soldiers, they are executioners." Another cried, "If they strike again, nothing will remain." The princess felt the fear crawl deep into her soul. For the first time in her life, she accepted a truth she could not change. Her empire was powerless, and humanity was stronger than legend. The warship drifted even closer, so close that its colossal structure filled the viewing window. Its metal surface carried scars of old battles, yet those scars made it more terrifying, not weaker. This was a ship that had fought 1,000 wars and survived them all, and now it stood against her people, untouched, unbroken, unstoppable. The voice returned one last time. "This was only a test," it said. "Do not mistake mercy for weakness." The chamber froze in silence. No one dared breathe. The meaning was clear if the HFY humans had wanted. They could have destroyed everything already. This was not their limit. This was only their warning. The princess's throat tightened, her pride fighting her fear. But when her eyes met the glowing lights of the warship, she felt small, like a child staring at the fury of a storm. And in that moment, she understood the truth. If she chose war, her people would vanish from the stars. If she chose pride, her empire would burn in a single breath. Her voice cracked as she whispered to herself, "We cannot win." The chamber of the flagship was filled with silence. Every officer, every soldier, every advisor stared at the princess. Their eyes begged her for an answer, for a command, but the princess's heart was heavy with fear. The human warship floated before them, silent, endless, unstoppable. Half her fleet was dead, their lights gone, their weapons useless. And yet the warship had not destroyed them. It had only shown them power, mercy wrapped in terror. Her generals whispered among themselves, their voices broken. "Your Highness, we must flee," one said. "No, we must kneel before they crush us," another argued. A third slammed his fist on the floor, tears running down his face. "They control everything, there is no escape." The princess closed her eyes, her breath shallow. She remembered the stories of her childhood, the humans who were said to be monsters, the humans who were said to be extinct. But she knew now the stories were wrong. They were not monsters. They were guardians of their realm. They were not extinct. They had been waiting all this time. Slowly, she stepped forward, her voice trembling yet strong. "Open the channel," she commanded. The chamber froze, every officer staring in disbelief. "Your Highness, to speak to them is madness," her commander cried. But she did not stop, her eyes locked on the warship outside. "If they wish to umamas, to kill us, we would already be dead," she whispered. "This is not death. This is judgment." The channel opened, the void filled with silence. Her lips trembled, but she forced the words out. "Great ship of humans," she said, "we crossed your border. We did not understand. We did not believe." Her voice cracked, but she continued. "We see now. You are not myth. You are not gone." She lowered her head. The first time a princess of her line had bowed to another. "We ask for peace." For a moment, nothing answered. The silence felt like eternity. Then the warship's lights pulsed, brighter than before, and the voice returned, deep and absolute. "Peace is earned," it said. "Respect is demanded." The princess's heart nearly stopped. Her people held their breath, waiting for the final word. And then the voice spoke again. "Go and carry our message to your empire." It paused, each word heavy as a star. Humanity does not vanish. Humanity waits. Humanity watches. The warship turned slowly, drifting back into the void. Its shadow swallowed the stars once more, and then it was gone, leaving only silence behind. The alien fleet hung broken, scarred by fear. The princess's hands trembled as she sank back into her throne. Her people watched her with wide eyes, not with pride, not with anger, but with realization. They had seen the truth, and the truth could never be forgotten. The princess whispered softly, her words only for herself. "A new age begins." And across the stars, in the hearts of every alien who had seen the ship, one truth burned like fire. Humanity was back, and the galaxy would never be the same.